Fight fans, welcome to the PBC Podcast, brought to you by Premier Boxing Champions with your host, Kenneth Bouhairie and Michael Rosenthal.
Welcome back, everyone, to the PBC Podcast. I'm Kenneth Bouhairie.
And I'm Michael Rosenthal, editor of USA Today's Boxing Junkie.
I know it's been a while since you've heard from us, but we're back like we never left. And we've got a pretty good show for you guys this week. Canelo Alvarez will be joining us. Of course, Saturday, September 30th, Canelo takes on undisputed 154-pound world champion Jermell Charlo in a battle of undisputed world champions. The first time ever the two undisputed champions have fought each other. We had the press tour last week, one stop in New York and another in LA, two press conferences, a whirlwind of media. And surprisingly, things were pretty chill between Canelo and Jermell. Mike, were you surprised that we didn't see anything spicier?
Maybe to some degree, because that's what we've come to expect in, I guess, most big fights, but not really. There isn't any significant bad blood between the two, first of all. Canelo is capable of trash talk, only if he's seriously provoked. Charlo hasn't done that. They certainly don't need to trash talk to sell this fight. I mean, it's such a great matchup that it sells itself, obviously. And as I wrote for the PBC website, I think they just have a lot of respect for one another as fighters. They're two of the very best fighters in the world. They've earned the respect of everyone, including each other. And I think you'll see that when the opening bell rings. I don't think either guy is going to rush into anything, in part because of the respect they have for each other.
Yeah, and I think they both know what the other person is about. I mean, they've been around each other for a long, long time. This is a fight that's been talked about since, 2014 when Canelo was at 154 pounds. So he's very familiar with Jermell. Jermell is very familiar with Canelo, and I think they both know that what they bring to the table. One thing that stood out, though, we got to see them face off for the first time, and Jermell looked significantly taller, maybe a little bigger than I anticipated. Did the size difference mean anything to you?
I'm with you. My first thought when I saw them standing next to each other was that Canelo really just doesn't look bigger than Charlo, like overall. Charlo's a good 4 inches taller than Canelo, meaning he looked down on him, during the stare downs. That was striking somehow, even though we knew going in that he's the taller guy. And Canelo didn't look appreciably thicker than Charlo, which was interesting.
Right.
Of course, I have to add this. We really need to see them when they're not wearing shirts. Then we'll get a better idea of the size difference. I'm guessing Canelo will look considerably wider at that time. Bottom line, though, it looks like anything but a physical mismatch. It looked like an even 50-50 thing.
Yeah, I think Canelo's, he's built like a tank, so I expect him to be a little wider. However, I did get a chance to see Jermell during the photo shoots and so forth, and he's definitely bulked up. I was shocked. So kind of curious to see how that plays out.
Right. You wonder how that's going to affect him in the fight. That's the thing.
Exactly.
When a guy bulks up, you wonder, is he going to be maybe a little bit slower, that kind of thing. So these are all factors going into the fight.
What about overall, watching the press conferences and all the interviews and so forth? What were your takeaways from each fighter?
Well, Canelo was Canelo. He's been through this so many times. He just takes it in stride, which makes it difficult to read him. I'll say this, though. He seems to have a little bit of an edge that I haven't seen in a few fights because of the perception that he's declining, based on his last two fights. At least that's my take. I think he has something to prove, whether he says that or not, and I think that's a motivating factor. I sense that he really wants to make a statement in this fight. So we'll see. Now, Charlo, he looked really intense when they introduced him at the press conferences, more intense than Canelo, I thought. I think part of that might be nerves. He's never been involved in a super fight like this. It also might have something to do with his attitude. This guy's just all business. This is a chance of a lifetime for him. He's not messing around. So I like the posture of both guys.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, Canelo's got that sort of been there, done that, doing it once again sort of posture. And I think for Jermell, this is his moment. This is what he's been waiting for. And it seems to me he's embracing it. He's preparing himself mentally, physically, spiritually. I like what I saw from him. Now, speaking of Canelo, it's time to bring him in. The 4-division champ, future Hall of Famer, and the current undisputed super middleweight champion Saul Canelo Alvarez. All right, Canelo, how's it going, man?
Good, yeah.
Doing good. I know you're coming off that huge press tour for September 30th. Does that experience, seeing your opponent, sizing him up, does it make you hungry to hurry up and get back to the gym and go train?
Yeah, yeah. When you in that kind of situation, the press conference, and you see your opponent and all about the fight, the excited around and everything, you excited to come back and keep training, even harder than you used to be. So yeah.
Now you and Jermell were really respectful to one another during the press tour. There was no trash talking, really. Why do you think that was the case?
Look, if you see all my fights, all my press tours and everything, I always try to be that kind of guy. I always respect my opponent. I don't need to talk shit or anything like that to sell fights. I don't like to be involved in that kind of things. But if the fighter comes and talks shit, I need to do it. I don't that kind of guy say, oh, okay, no, I fucking fire back. Right? In this situation, he coming in a good way and respectful and I like it because you realize that all the energy, all the energy is focused on the fight, and that's when you realize it's gonna be a good fight.
Speaking of trash talk, looking backward, what trash talking opponent of yours got under your skin the most?
No, under my skin, but I fucking tried to hit so hard was Billy Joe Saunders. He talked a lot, but for a long time. He and I'm Golovkin, but Billy Joe Saunders is like a more aggressive, more deep trash, So I just get into the fight and I try to just really hurt him.
I understand. You mentioned during the press tour that some people believe that you're declining, based on your last two performances, and you acknowledged that you weren't yourself against Golovkin and Ryder. You even said, "I know why." Can you tell us why you weren't at your best?
Yeah, because I'm not able to 100% to train 100% because of my hand, my surgery. I'm still in rehab for the fight with John Ryder. With the fight with Golovkin, I still have my issues in my wrist, so that's why. But and when you get into the fight, you don't have that confidence to go 100%, throw punches, and you're full, no. But now I feel in my 100%. I can throw my hand. I can work with Eddie in the pads. I can throw my hand hard. So that made me feel confident in the fight. When you're able to train 100%, you have everything to put in the fight.
Now, you've always had respect from everyone. You've been the king for a decade. And then now after the loss to Duval and then those two performances, all of a sudden you have doubters. Has that been difficult?
No, it's not difficult, but because I know what happened and I know what is happening in me. I know, and I understand that people say that, but I don't care. I don't care because I know what what I am, and what I'm in, what position I am. So and I my whole life I just show them in the fight. I don't need to. I can tell you right now a lot of things. I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna be different. I'm gonna make and this and that. But in the fight, you will see the difference. I always prove with in the fight.
One other question regarding the critics. There's some people who say, well, Canelo's about 33. He's been fighting professionally for 18 years. Maybe he's just worn out. Maybe he's just tired. of
Yeah.
of the training camps and everything. Is that has that been the case at all?
No, I love my routine. I love training. I mean, I love being in training camp. I love the sacrifices for boxing, all the discipline. I love it. I still love it. When one time I tell Eddie, when I lose that love for boxing, that's the last day I'm gonna be involved in boxing. No, but that's not the case. I just look for 17 years. I don't have any injury. Till 16 years, I don't have any injury till the fight with Golovkin for my knee, and then my wrist. In some point, you need to have some issues, right, in your body because for a long time, so many training camps and everything, you need to have some issues in your body, no, and just happen 1 year. It's just the sequence is just 1 year to have the rehab, the knees, my wrist, and everything. But now I'm 100%, and I'm gonna bring my best in September 30.
Do you feel there's extra pressure on you in this fight to make a statement, coming off the recent performances?
I just gonna do my job. I just gonna do my job. I just need to do my job, and that's it. My boxing skills, my experience, put everything together, and that's it.
There's a big fight, a big name like Charlo, someone who you've been affiliated with or talked about with for so many years. Does that give you extra motivation?
Yeah, yeah. I always motivate with every opponent, but when you're involved in this kind of situation, when a fighter calling you out for a long time, and finally you get into the fight, I think it's more excited, more you have extra motivation. Yeah.
Obviously, Jermell Charlo's had a lot of success. What do you think makes him a dangerous opponent?
He's a dangerous opponent. He have everything. He have power. He have boxing skills, and he have confidence on himself. That's dangerous too. But I mean, I'm in this position a lot of times, so I'm ready.
I understand. So changing gears a little bit, not many people have met face to face with Al Haymon in recent years. Some have even said that he doesn't even exist. What was your meeting with Al like, and what was it like negotiating with him?
Really good. We just talk. We talk to everything, and I just wanted to, because I saw him when I fought with Julio Cesar Chavez. He was there. I saw him just one time, and then I go to his city, and because I wanna know him better and talk with him in person and everything, because I'm that kind of person. I need to know the people and feel the people and everything, and I really like it. I really like it, and I really like the meet we have, and I think he's a great person, great businessman, but mostly is a great person, and that's what I like, because I always train my team, and everything is around me like a family, and that's why I want to see him and talk with him um, in person, and I really like Al Haymon, and I'm happy to be here.
Great.
Canelo, you've experienced so much in the sport from where you started to reaching the highest level. What would you say is what have you learned through boxing? What is the biggest learning experience you've had through boxing?
I think I learned everything from boxing: to know people better, to do business with the people, the correct people. Some of them are just businessman, and you need to work like a businessman, right? Because every single time I always treat people like a family, and I always loyal like a family and everything. But as some of the people, they just work because of business, no. So I learned all of that stuff, You need to work with people who just want business for you, and that's fine. It's not bad. That's fine. You need to trade just for business, good business, and train everybody good. Because at the end of the day, when you trade everybody good, you have the doors open every single time, right? No matter what, and that's it. That's one of the things I learned from boxing. It's not just in boxing, in everywhere. If you trade everybody good and you good doing business good, if the guy is businessman and you do good business and not try to fuck anybody, you always have the doors open everywhere.
Or do they finally, I know you guys don't like to look too far ahead, but, I think the fans are wondering, what might be next, what might follow the Jermell Charlo fight if you win. Can you give us an idea of what your goals are?
The truth is that we don't really know. We just 100% focus on Jermell Charlo, and then we'll see. We'll see. It's a lot of fights out there, but we 100% focus on Jermell Charlo, and then we wanna sit and sit down and look what is next.
Fantastic, Canelo. Thanks so much.
My pleasure.
What a scene here in Sin City.
I always ready for a fight. Be Undisputed.
All hail King Canelo!
Very few fighters in history of boxing accomplish this.
First undisputed champion!
Y'all know who Jermell Charlo is. I'm undisputed for a reason.
The first undisputed 154-pound champ.
What's next?
Jermell Charlo and Canelo can easily happen.
I could be Canelo.
We are on the cusp of boxing history. King Canelo Alvarez entering the ring.
En el boxeo hay niveles. Nunca he peleado con alguien como yo y...
Ain't nothing easy in the ring with me.
I got the speed, I got the power, I want all the smoke.
At the end of the day, I always win.
I'm not afraid of no man.
Pues el que no arriesga no gana.
It's about pride. It's about legacy. It's about history.
Canelo Alvarez takes on Jermell Charlo. September 30th on Showtime pay-per-view.
Showtime.
It's time for Mike and I to go toe-to-toe, and this week and in the upcoming weeks, we're going to be breaking down Canelo Alvarez versus Jermell Charlo Saturday, September 30th, live at T-Mobile Arena in Las Vegas on Showtime pay-per-view. And this week, we're going to be breaking down one specific area, which is what is a bigger factor, Canelo's perceived decline or Charlo's moving up in weight? So, Mike, I pose that question to you. What do you, in your opinion, what is bigger? Is it the so-called decline of Canelo, or is the bigger factor Charlo moving up in weight?
Well, that's a tough question, which makes it a good question, because those are obviously the two key questions going into the fight. If I have to make a choice, I'd say that Canelo's perceived decline is the bigger factor. I'll tell you why. If he hasn't declined or is even close to, his peak, his best, I think he wins the fight. If he has begun to decline to any appreciable degree, I think Charlo wins the fight. So size, in that sense, size really isn't going to matter that much. Charlo is just too good of an all-around fighter to lose to a guy who is fading, even a bigger guy like Canelo. That's it in my opinion. Where Canelo is in terms of his sharpness will determine the outcome of the fight.
Yeah, you're probably right, especially given that, Jermell's been at 154 for, how many years. And he isn't a small 154-pounder either. He's a pretty big 154-pounder. Granted, that doesn't mean that moving up in weight won't affect him, but I sort of see this in the same light as I did Bernard Hopkins going from 160 to 175 after such a long run in the middleweight division, and there were so many concerns about whether or not he was going to be able to handle 75, but he did it fine. And people forget, Bernard was like Jermell, was disciplined, always made the weight comfortably, but he was a big guy for that division. And, I think Jermell's been preparing to move up in weight for some time now, and I think he's going to do it the right way. So the question is, which Canelo will he meet? Which leads to my next question, actually. In your opinion, is Canelo in decline?
Honestly, that's difficult to say, at least for me. I think it's safe to say that he isn't quite what he was, after 18 years and dozens of training camps as a professional, which we pointed out when we asked him this question. The question is, to what degree has he declined? You look at his last two performances and you might think, man, he's not the Canelo who was so dominating for so many years. However, there might be reasons beyond age and wear and tear, as he pointed out. He's been fighting with an injured left wrist, which ultimately required surgery. He's healthy now. And I wonder if it was, he didn't get into this, but I wonder if it was hard for him to get motivated for Gennady Golovkin and John Ryder. He really didn't want to fight. He resisted it to the very end. He really didn't want to fight Triple G a third time. He thought that their rivalry was finished business. And Ryder's the sort of nondescript guy that it's just difficult to get up for. I don't think there's any question that he'll be up. He'll be motivated for September 30th. So, yes, he might have lost a little bit off his fastball, but he could still look a lot better in this fight than he has in the last couple fights.
Yeah, and I think he will. I mean, I just think it's hard to get out of bed. It's hard to get out of bed when you're training in silk pajamas, but that doesn't necessarily apply here. I think that Canelo does a good job of staying in shape and working hard, and certainly hasn't lost the passion. But when you're fighting a guy like John Ryder, with all due respect to John Ryder, I just think if you're Canelo Alvarez, it is hard to get out of bed and put in the same effort. And that may be the same for the last two or even three opponents, although I think, on some level, he and the injuries, and I think he underestimated, Dimitri Bivol by a good bit, just because I feel like everyone sort of did. And Bivol went in there and showed that he was a pound for pounder in his own right. But yeah, certainly the last two fights, I think that you take the injuries and then you add the motivation factor. And, we asked him, is there extra motivation fighting a guy like Jermell Charlo? And he said yes, because there is. And I think there's much more excitement. I think, he's going to train that much harder for a fight like this. What about Jermell Charlo, though? Moving up from 154 to 168, especially fighting a guy like Canelo Alvarez, he seems to think that the size difference is being overblown. Would you agree with him?
Well, I'm not saying that that's not a significant factor. I'm just saying that Canelo's sharpness is a bigger factor. So I do think it's a factor. We still have a guy moving up 2 weight classes to face a future Hall of Famer who is still only 33 years old, the same age as Charlo, by the way. So to me, no matter how you look at it, that's a daunting challenge. You mentioned Hopkins moving up in weight. So yeah, a lot of guys have moved up in weight. Some guys succeed, some guys don't. It's just moving up 2 weight classes to fight a guy like Canelo is really a big deal. I'm sure Jermell spars with bigger guys, but in fights, he's used to punching and getting punched by 154 pounders. Now he's going to be taking shots from a 168 pounder with heavy hands. If I were on Team Charlo, I'd be a little bit nervous because of that. I don't think Charlo is nervous. I'm sure he's 100% positive he's going to win the fight. At the same time, I think he knows he made a bold, I'll borrow a term from him and his team, a bold dare to be great move. Even though he's a big 154 pounder, as you pointed out, he knows, we all know that they have different weight classes for a reason. Smaller guys aren't supposed to fight bigger guys. I think that's one of many things that make this fight so fascinating.
Yeah, absolutely. And look, I like the Hopkins comparison just because of him moving up 2 divisions, fighting a top pound for pounder, and Antonio Tarver, who was riding high at that time. I mean, the wins over Roy Jones and the win over Glenn Johnson. Haven't done the Rocky movie. There was nobody. I mean, Antonio Tarver at that point was just a rock star, and Bernard Hopkins moved up and washed him. I expect this fight to be a little more competitive than that one, but I do think that Jermell can do what Hopkins did. And you know what? Look, he doesn't have to go all the way to 168, although he kind of alluded to that being his intention. But if he got to 162, 163,
Yeah.
Well, and what were you going to say?
I was going to say, but he's no. He should fight at a weight that's comfortable for him, but he's still fighting 168 pounder. I have a ton of respect for Jermell. I think he's one of the top guys all around. He's a good boxer, and obviously he's a big puncher. But I'm not sure he's the technician that Bernard Hopkins was. That's the thing. I mean, Bernard Hopkins is probably one of the greatest technicians to ever walk the earth. So, I mean, no disrespect for Jermell, but Bernard's, boxing acumen is just way off the charts. So maybe that contributed to his success in his moving.
Oh, certainly. I mean, that attributed to Hopkins' success. I just think that that Jermell has attributes that can certainly lead him to victory in this one.
Oh, absolutely. And
I see a path to victory. And, given that he's wanted this fight for so long and has probably been studying Canelo for so long, especially with a guy like Derek James in his corner, I have a feeling that they're going to have a great game plan. But then again, it's Canelo Alvarez they're facing. So it's just going to be an amazing night. Two all-time greats, two undisputed champions, two guys who have conquered their respective divisions. And, I can't wait to see it. We're going to be talking about it a lot more in the upcoming episodes leading up to the September 30th pay-per-view. But that's going to do it for this episode. We want to thank you guys for tuning in. We want to thank Canelo Alvarez for joining us. And be sure to check us out next week for more boxing talk, more interviews right here on the PBC Podcast.